So imagine you're building an empire. You want it to be epic, powerful, something that screams, "We're in charge" for all time. What's your go-to building material? Granite, maybe? Marble? Well, in ancient Mesopotamia, the cradle of civilization, they went with mud. Yep. But this is the story of monumental ego battling some serious material limitations. A history where they literally built magical 50-ton, five-legged bowls just to guard palaces made of dirt.
And that's the big question, right? How do you project eternal power with a material that, dissolves in the rain? Well, today, we're going to dig into how some incredible engineering and raw political ambition turned simple dirt into the stuff of legend.
And here it is, the whole paradox in one shot. On the one hand, you see what mudbrick eventually becomes, eroded, crumbling earth. But on the other, you see the mind-blowing scale of the world they built with it. These weren't just cities. They were layered on top of each other, built on their own ruins for centuries, creating these huge artificial mounds that archaeologists call tell.
Okay, so to really get their solutions, we have to understand their problems. The story of Mesopotamian architecture isn't about what they wanted to build with. It's a story of incredible innovation born from having, well, no other choice. What's so wild is how the environment shaped literally everything. The land between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers was super rich in soil, but it was desperately poor in just about everything else. No big forests for timber, no mountains for quarry stone. All they had was mud. And the very rivers that gave them that mud, they were violent and totally unpredictable. So it's no wonder their gods seemed so moody. They believed a flood could wipe everyone out just because people were being too loud. So here's the deal. If your only building block is weak, you have to get super clever with how you put those blocks together. The Mesopotamians didn't just build with mud, they engineered it into a total art form.
This, right here, this is the technological cheat code that made their whole world possible. Pitched brick vaulting. I mean, think about it. In a land with no timber for scaffolding, how in the world do you build an arch or a roof? Simple. You lean the bricks against each other in just the right way so they actually support themselves while you're building. It's an absolutely brilliant workaround.
Let's just walk through how they did it. First, they would lay the initial bricks, leaning them inward. See how they're staggered? They actually did this dry, with no mortar at first, so they could nudge everything around to get the angle perfect before locking it in. It was like a practice run for this massive architectural puzzle.
Now, this next step is where the pure genius comes in. They just draw a simple line in mud plaster on an end wall to use as a guide. Then, ring by ring, they would lean the next course of bricks against the one before it, each one at a slight angle. The entire structure becomes self-supporting as it's being built. It's just an incredibly elegant solution.
And boom, this was the result. A massive, stable vault, all made from mud. This wasn't just some neat architectural trick. It was the key that unlocked their ability to build on a monumental scale. This one technique is what allowed humble cities to become sprawling imperial capitals.
But Mesopotamian architecture wasn't just about clever engineering. Their buildings were like a physical map of their society. It showed how they lived, how they interacted, and maybe most importantly, what they valued. This quote from Bill Hillier and Julian Hansen just nails it. A floor plan isn't just a bunch of rooms. It's a script for how people are supposed to interact. It tells you who can go where, who gets to see whom, and who's in control. The way a house is laid out literally dictates the social life inside it. And get this, there's a modern field for studying this stuff. It's called space syntax. Archaeologists use it to basically reverse engineer the social rules of ancient cultures. By analyzing a floor plan not as a building but as a system, they can decode the relationships between the people who actually lived there. Okay, so here's how it works in practice. On the left, you've got a simple two-room Mesopotamian house. On the right, that's its space syntax graph. See the circle with the cross? See? That's the outside world, the street. Now notice how to get to that inner room B, you have to pass through room A first. That's not just a path, it's a social firewall. It's a statement about control and privacy.
So this shows us a really crucial difference between symmetric and asymmetric spaces. Think about a modern open-plan office. That's a symmetric space. It's designed to make everyone interact. But Mesopotamian houses were highly asymmetric. You often had to navigate a whole series of rooms just to reach the most private areas. This created a clear, controlled boundary between the public street and the private family life inside. They really valued their privacy.
But, building big is only half the story. That engineering breakthrough enabled a really profound shift in power. The whole focus of monumental architecture started to pivot, moving away from honoring the gods and towards glorifying the king.
This timeline really shows it all. For the first 1,000 years or so, the most important buildings are the ziggurats, these man-made mountains meant to connect the earth to the heavens. But then, a rival appears on the skyline, the palace. The king's house starts competing with the god's house, until, finally, under the Assyrians, the palace becomes the absolute center of the universe.
You can actually hear this shift in the way kings talked about themselves. Just listen to this from Hammurabi of Babylon. He isn't saying the gods are protecting you. He's saying, I am protecting you. My shade covers the city. The job of keeping the world in order is literally moving from the gods to the king.
And this all leads up to the Assyrians. They took the whole idea of the royal palace and just supercharged it. They turned it into a terrifying machine of state propaganda, designed to awe and intimidate anyone who walked through its gates.
This is the crucial concept. The Assyrians really understood that a building isn't just a place to live or work, it's a message. And the message of their palaces was simple and brutal. We are in control. We are all powerful. Do not even think about crossing us.
But the ultimate power move was waiting right at the gates, the Lamassu. It was this colossal winged bull, or sometimes a lion, with a human head. These things were huge, often weighing up to 50 tons. But they had this one really weird feature, a fifth leg. What was that all about?
This is just pure genius. The fifth leg is an ancient optical illusion. When you approach the gate from the front, you see two front legs. The creature looks solid, stationary, unmovable, like an impenetrable guardian. But as you walk past it and see it from the side, you now see four legs in a striding motion, which makes it look like it's constantly advancing, always moving forward. It's a symbol of eternal, unshakable vigilance.
So how did they solve the mud problem on the inside? Well, while the outside was still mud brick, they lined the interior walls with these enormous imported stone slabs called orthostats. And these carved panels were basically the king's personal stone billboard. The whole ideology was that the king, as the agent of the god Ashur, had to keep conquering to prevent the apocalypse. And the palace art was all the proof you needed that he was doing his job.
And the messaging was not subtle. Every single carving had a very specific purpose. You'd see the king as the ultimate warrior, projecting absolute strength. You'd see the gruesome fates of those who rebelled, which was a pretty clear warning to any visiting diplomat. And you'd see the vast, orderly administration of the empire, showcasing its reach and control. It was a complete story of power, told in stone, all lining the walls of a palace made of mud.
So what happened to these massive mud brick empires? Well, their final chapter has the greatest irony of all, and it's the very reason we can tell their story today.
When these empires were conquered, their palaces were just abandoned. The big wooden roofs were lost, and the unbaked mud brick walls, exposed to the elements, simply melted back into the earth. But in doing so, they buried those incredible stone propaganda panels. So in the end, the very thing that made their empire vulnerable in life, the mud, became its greatest protector in death.
It really makes you wonder, doesn't it? What story is our own architecture telling? Our world of steel and glass? What will it have to say about us in 4,000 years? And will any of it even be left to tell the tale?